Welcome back to my Dallas Cowboys blog. I wanted to make this post pretty quick in the wake of the Cowboys' loss to Green Bay. It was very disappointing, to say the least. The worst aspect of it is how the Cowboys got into do-or-die situations where, there were 50-50 odds that a referee was going to have a chance to decide the game. And it wouldn't have been like that if they could have converted third down or second down, or if they had capitalized on some earlier opportunities, such as at the end of the first half, or they got sacked on a first down pass, and it eventually set up a 3rd and 23 that they just tried to punt on. And the worst problem of all is that no one in the Cowboys pass rush could get there. Certainly none of our defensive backs were close to intercepting Aaron Rodgers. You notice, unlike other quarterbacks that the Cowboys play, he never hit any of the Cowboy defenders in the hands. He was great. I think he really showed why he's the MVP. And if the Cowboys are going to match up next year and beat Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to do it with a pass rush. There was no pass rush in this game. I mean, not in the second half. The pass rush looked formidable in the first half, but then it vanished. And you really needed it. We really needed it when Green Bay was trying to run out the clock, and we really needed it really throughout the game, and it really wasn't getting home. It was disappointing because I don't understand how DeMarcus Lawrence can get a sack on Reef Riley, but he can't get a sack on this second-year left tackle playing for Green Bay. There's a lot of things like that. The future for Dallas is so murky. Like, what coaches are coming back? Is DeMarco Murray gone? After the game, DeMarco Murray said that he felt like he fumbled away the biggest game of his life. And I felt very sorry for him. At the time, I didn't think that Dallas was punished for the fumble. But if you really look at it, that field goal difference prevented the Cowboys, for example, from trying field goals. There were a lot of mistakes made by the Cowboys, and an otherwise very close to perfect team. When they're winning big, nothing goes wrong like that. When they're winning competitively, they get into situations where referees make decisions that decide the fate of the game. So for the Cowboys to come back next year, what they need to do is, how are they going to build their team to blow out their opponents? Obviously, if they allow games to be close at the end, then they are flirting with destiny and risk losing the game on some BS call by the refs. And so for the Cowboys to win in 2015, they obviously are not going to just get lucky on their way through the playoffs. In fact, they're going to have to overcome bad luck. They overcome some bad luck against Detroit, but they weren't enough to overcome bad luck against Green Bay. Dallas's offense scored only 21 points. That's almost a season low. It's obviously not the season low, but mostly the Cowboys to win needed to score 30. And they were 9 points away from that. They weren't even close to 30. Maybe if Dan Bailey had hit that field goal at the end of the first half, some other things could have been different. But Green Bay managed to keep it close and managed to get lucky when it counted. And then they actually managed to run the ball when it mattered. Dallas couldn't stop the run. Maybe it was all the losses at linebacker that Dallas has endured this year that led ultimately to Dallas not being able to stop the run with the game on the line. And maybe it's guys missing like Terrell McClain and not just Terrell McClain, but also the defensive tackle from Chicago that just came here. He's on IR. All these guys would have helped with an inside pass rush. My question is sort of like, what are the Cowboys going to do to stay healthy? So, I'm starting to wonder, or I'm wondering, really, what can the Cowboys do to get good enough to beat Green Bay next year, or to beat any of the teams in the playoffs, an elite quarterback, whoever it may be next year? And I think some things help. It's going to be nice that Sean Lee's going to be back around for the Cowboys. I can see him making interceptions. Is he still as fast as he used to be? Is he going to be able to make those plays he used to do? he can be a big upgrade in the passing game. He might be able to really help Dallas. Another person that might really help Dallas is Morris Claiborne. The Dallas' secondary played about as competitively as you can against Green Bay, but maybe we get the Morris Claiborne the Cowboys thought they drafted, and then suddenly the Cowboys look like they could put the smackdown on some better teams. For example, imagine if Dallas had Patrick Peterson. Now, I don't know that he would have changed this Green Bay game, but Patrick Peterson is an elite NFL cornerback, and you have to admit that at least the Cowboys thought that Morris Claiborne would be somewhat like Patrick Peterson. So if he can grab like 50% of that and get back to being a very competitive NFL player, that would help our secondary. Some more things that would help. I don't know. My question is Rod Marinelli really that great of a defensive coordinator? Let's not pretend the Cowboys were in the top 10. I'm not going to pretend I expected them to be in the top 10. Marinelli overachieved with less talent. That's not to say he's going to overachieve with good talent. The one thing I do not want the 2014 transitioning to the 2015 Cowboys to be like is I do not want it to be like 2009, where everyone thought somehow between 2009 and 2010 the team would just get better, and they didn't really add much talent, and in 2010 they cratered, getting Wade Phillips fired. So now heading in 2015, the Cowboys are obviously not sitting on their laurels. They have like a billion free agents. Everybody on the roster may be a free agent. Half their coaching staff, I think everyone on their coaching staff just about is not under contract. It's really like, this is for a team that won a playoff game, made it to the divisional round. I can't believe how much like boggle the roster is going to be in 2014. There's so many players transitioning. They might be leaving the team. Is Rolando McClain really a star, or is he kind of just an average linebacker who can't stay healthy? I have a feeling he's going to get a sort of incentive-laden contract to come back to Dallas. And there's lots of players like McClain. Terrell McClain, is he a good player, or is he just unable to stay on the field now? I mean, he's in his 5th year in the NFL, and he couldn't really stick around for the Cowboys. Now past Terrell McClain, what did our defensive tackles do to stop the run? Our young guys, our 7th-round picks. I was hoping, Ken Bishop, he'll get an opportunity. He got an opportunity against Green Bay. He had some good plays, but he was part of that defense that got ran over when they needed to stuff the run. There's a lot of just guys on the defense, and it's cool that they strung together this amount of success. I'm really at a loss as to where the Cowboys are going to go to find players worthy of celebrity on the defense. They're going to go to the draft, but they're not going to have some super high picks. They're going to have lower picks than they had last year. That does make me think about free agents, but the Cowboys have so many people they need to sign on their own team. I don't think any great defensive player at large in the NFL is going to come to Dallas. What can Dallas do to get better on offense? They played really well, but what the hell is up with their blitz pickups? They struggled with that all year. It's something that we have watched, even with the good offensive line of like 2008 and 9. Those guys struggled with blitzes. It's not uncommon in the NFL to struggle with blitzes. That's why defenses blitz, because offenses struggle with it. And, if no one struggled with it, no one in the NFL would blitz anymore. So obviously, the play causes issues. I wonder, though, Bill Callahan, he's the offensive line coach, but a lot of NFL teams have asked him to be their offensive coordinator, and Jerry Jones prevented him from leaving. I wonder, though, if they're going to let him leave this time. He's done a great job to mold this Cowboys offensive line into a great young line. I wonder if a different kind of offensive mind is required to come in here, though, and do something that will dismantle those effing blitzes. I don't know, like, when Jimmy Johnson hired Norv Turner's scheme promised that there would be an answer for the blitzes. And Norv Turner delivered that. So Troy Aikman was then able to throw against the blitzes and have some Super Bowl success. Later in his career, people would say, well, the way to defeat the Cowboys is with the blitz. And that's because the Cowboys started having a bunch of just guys on the offensive line, and those guys couldn't block the blitz anymore, or the receivers would unreliably catch. They would drop the ball, for example. Anyway, so I think the Cowboys coaching could take some fresh blood on offense, especially on how they handle blitzes. But overall, the offense performed very well. They were robbed of a touchdown up in Green Bay, so otherwise they maybe would have scored 28 points, which is commendable. How are the Cowboys going to bring their point against total down on defense, though? It's a real conundrum. I pointed to Morris Claiborne, Sean Lee. Those two guys will help. I think they're both coming back from injuries, and relying on them is sort of asking a little much of fate. Yet it's not like the Cowboys have a forthcoming very high draft pick. So the best opportunity to get some blue chip talent on defense comes from within. And the other thing that the Cowboys need to do is they need to figure out what Rod Marinelli is going to do. Brian Broadhouse has been on his media platform talking for a while about how he thinks Rod Marinelli is going to end up in Tampa Bay. So whatever ends up in Dallas, Dallas needs to make his decision quick. And they need to make that decision with a mind towards what their scheme is going to be so they can figure out who their role players are. Who are they going to go out and draft? Who are they going to re-sign this year? Rod Marinelli coached these guys, but if he's going to leave town, then we should know, or the Cowboys staff needs to know quickly what the next scheme is going to be like. It's obviously, in my opinion, going to be a 4-3 scheme. Cowboys are not going to bother switching back to a 3-4 and playing jumble with their player templates. They're going to keep drafting 4-3 players, but how that 4-3 is going to be run remains to be seen. Has Brandon Carr played his last game at Dallas? That's a very interesting question. There's so many things to ask about heading into the offseason, and still getting over that depressing or distressing or just like a debacle of a loss to Green Bay. That was really disappointing. But don't forget how Dallas had gone 8-8 3 seasons. Going 12-4 this year was quite a step forward for the franchise. Now they need to finish the process. This process has generated an excellent offense, but they need to play some defense, and they need to find some sort of mojo on defense. You maybe notice Green Bay, they're not great on defense this year, but they've had their same defensive coordinator for like 8 years. He's been drafting players into that system that whole time. So they're not always good, but they're ready for the playoffs because they've been doing the same scheme for so long. And I'm kind of envious of that. So Green Bay doesn't have a great defense, but they do have a great defensive coordinator. And Dallas needs to get there too. If Dallas can't have a great defense because in this modern free agent era they spend all their money on offense, then they at least need a good enough one. And getting a good enough defense does come from the coaching staff. Rod Marinelli did a hell of a job this year, but he couldn't win the playoff game. And so he either needs more talent or we need a more talented defensive coordinator. And that's that. Well, the offseason should be exciting. It's going to be tumultuous. Hopefully the Cowboys are better in 2015 than they were in 2014. Honestly, there's so much up in the air that's not a guarantee. The one thing that would just disappoint me so much as a fan is to see them regress. Hopefully it's not the slap in the face regression that happened in 2010. Hopefully the Cowboys continue to get better. I do think that this offseason of 2015 is going to be very different from the offseason of 2010. There's so many different forces at play for the Cowboys. No one is going to be able to sit on their butt and do nothing like they did at the end of 2009. So I think that's what we have to look forward to. The players, they played their hearts out. They played their asses off. I feel sorry for them. I feel like Des Bryant made another angelical play and was robbed by some bureaucrats who weren't even in Green Bay. And again, like, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but if the playoffs continue to be decided by referees, that's just going to, like, make watching the playoffs depressing. Who wants to watch people, like, debate the rules at the climax of important football games? So I would like to see, maybe a little less refereeing. If they could find a way to, like, stop jumbling their referee squads in the playoffs, and if they could, I don't know. Some people talk about getting rid of instant replay just to keep the game more efficient and more in a straight line. Yeah, I don't know if I'm on with that. But this game obviously is the kind of game that leaves you with a lot of soul searching. However, I want to, stop the navel gazing, quit wondering about the legalese. I don't like talking about bad referees. My problem is that the game was too close. The Cowboys allowed referees to make the call because they weren't blowing those suckers away. So when they meet in the future and the Cowboys are going to blow Green Bay away, what are they going to do differently? That's my question. I think the Cowboys got to get some better talent on defense. They maybe need some even better coaching then. They need to get better somehow, and some of that maybe involves trading a pound of flesh in a biblical sense, and I don't mean like in the movie Seven. But it's going to take some sacrifice for Dallas to get better now. And I don't know what steps they're going to be able to take right here, right now. We're going to have a whole offseason to study the future. But Dallas's priority needs to be getting better. They need to get better. They need to block the blitz better. They need to run better, even in tough circumstances. They need better fullback play, a guy that can catch passes reliably, even though he caught some passes in that game. They need to play defense better. They need to play defense in the first half, and they need to play defense in the second half. I mean, what's up with that? This team is too hot and cold. And, I think it starts with talent. There is some talented players coming back. So maybe between Anthony Spencer, Sean Lee, DeMarcus Lawrence, Morris Claiborne, the Cowboys actually have enough talent to put a real defense together next year. I hope so. I know the Cowboys are going to make a lot of big changes, and so I'm excited to follow and see what all comes from that. Well, I'm going to sign off. I hope you have a good 2015. Don't let that playoff loss get you down. There will be next year. And, whoever won that game against Green Bay, I've always loved the Dallas Cowboys because of their historic symbols of excellence. I was not content to win that game on iffy situations anyway. So when the Cowboys are at their best, they're really beyond having the referees take that away from them. And that's where this franchise needs to get back to. And I won't be satisfied until they're there. For me, I don't know if winning a Super Bowl is enough. They got to win a Super Bowl a few times and by a lot of points. So this franchise still has a way to go before it's back at that level. All right, I'm signing off. This has been my Cowboys blog. Have a good 2015.